Nationwide is so much more than a great insurance company. They're one of America's largest financial services companies. Like how I'm more than just Peyton Manning. I'm also motivating Manning. When I say insurance, you say financial services. Insurance.
Financial services.
Insurance.
Financial services.
Now when I say Nationwide, you say is both. Nationwide.
Is both.
Nationwide.
Is both.
For your insurance and financial needs, Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Investment Services Corporation, member FINRA, Columbus, Ohio.
This message is brought to you by Apple Card. You left your wallet in the car, or was it at home? No need to panic. With your iPhone, you can tap to pay using Apple Card with Apple Pay and earn unlimited daily cash back when you do. Apple Card is ready when you need it, subject to credit approval. Apple Card issued by Goldman Sachs, Bank USA, Salt Lake City branch. Terms and more at applecard.com. Military life isn't predictable, but earning your master's degree can be. With American Military University's 40-plus flexible online master's programs, you can stay mission ready while you get market ready. Learn anywhere, anytime with an education built to keep pace, steady, reliable, and always accessible. Plus, military service members, veterans, and their families can save up to 45% on master's tuition with AMU's special rates and grants. Learn more at amu.apus.edu. AMU, steady through every mission.
Here's Kristen Balboni and Sharon Thorsland with your Sideline Pass.
That's right. It's time for Sideline Pass with your Panther sideline reporters, Sharon and Kristen. Sharon, it's Wednesday. How's your week going so far?
It is going just great. How about you? I'm loving this little snap of cold weather.
You know what? As sideline reporters, we're going to talk about weather, whether people want to hear about it or not. And I have to say that, it was a beautiful day on Sunday, 74, 75. I actually had to break out my summer gear a little bit. I got all my sweaters in the closet. But while I was grateful that it was still hot on Sunday for the game, I like a little 40-degree weather every now and then, and that's what it's been the last couple days here.
Yeah, it was great fun, and we got some snow around where I live near town, and we got a pretty decent amount of snow swirling around on Monday night, so that was unusual to see in early November.
I will say, yes, so I was here for an event at the stadium late that night, and I was sitting in the suite waiting for my little part to host an event. And all of a sudden, you see this snow swirling, and I have never seen snow on the field at Bank of America Stadium. You may have.
I have, but
yeah.
Certainly not in November.
No, but it was like a little magical winter wonderland. So crazy days here in November in Charlotte, but that's North Carolina for you.
Absolutely.
So, the weather was great on Sunday. Unfortunately, the final score of that game was not in the Panthers' favor. They lose 17-7 to the Saints. But, Sharon, there's not much to say that hasn't been said already. And with the fact that it's Wednesday, I thought, we could look ahead and kind of go ahead and focus on the Falcons, because that has been the Panthers. That's been the real kind of message that has come out of this team, win or lose. They want to turn the page by Wednesday. There were maybe some questions last week about the week of preparation. We heard some of the players say that. We heard Canales saying, I'm going to go back to the drawing board on a couple of things and see if it was the Victory Monday or if it was the way we prepared the guys. So I think they're working on all of that in order to have a great week of practice. So I thought, why don't we do the same and kind of look ahead to a very interesting Falcons matchup?
Absolutely. Another division game. And I think we've seen in the past, you can't count anybody out no matter what their record is, especially when it's a division rival. And this Atlanta team has been in so many games and lost a bunch of games by, just a couple of points. But then they've also been on the opposite end of it. Like when we beat them, Panthers beat them 30-0.
Yeah.
So they're coming off a tough loss to the Colts over in Berlin and have to travel all the way back and now turn around and play a game already, which is unusual. I normally try to give you a bye week or something afterwards, but no such luck for the
Can
Falcons.
Can I ask you about that really quick? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you did the overseas trip last year. What is that like? That seems very tough for a team to come back because you're adjusting to local time when you get there, correct? Or did everyone try to stay on the same schedule?
It was tough. They were trying to make us get to local time, trying to make everybody sleep on the airplane because when you landed, it was 9 o'clock in the morning in Munich. So they tried to get you on the local schedule as much as possible, but then we left late at night, which was really very probably late afternoon, local time in Charlotte. And so we landed literally in the middle of the night. And yeah, it was tough to get back on schedule for a couple of days, but we had a bye coming after that.
Yeah.
So there was a much nicer, but yeah, it was tough when you get home basically Monday in the middle of the night and trying to just come back to the real world. It was tough. It took a couple of days to reacclimate. So I'm sure that the Falcons are having a bit of a tough time with that. They might be reacclimated by now, but that's certainly a tough turnaround, and it's really exhausting.
Yeah, they're world-class athletes. They're young, but still, that's a big turnaround, like you said, to then come back and play the next week. So I'm sorry to interrupt you on that. I just had to ask about that because, like you said, it's kind of a cruel. Even though they're our opponent this week, it's a little bit of a cruel move to have them playing this week right after that big turnaround. And it was an overtime game. So they've, I'm sure they're putting in all the work and they'll be ready, but not easy. But Sharon, like you said, this team has been competitive. And I got to imagine they certainly want to avenge that loss at home, that 30-0 shutout in week 3.
Oh, you know it. They're just 3-6 on the season. They've lost 4 in a row. So they are, I'm sure, just really dying to get back in the win column. And I mean, they've had, several problems, but Michael Penix Jr. sort of gone backwards a little bit in his second year. He's struggling a little bit, can't seem to connect with a whole lot of receivers except Drake London is his star of the game. He leads the team with six receptions. And, so they're having a little bit of struggles. They're moving the football and a lot of trouble on special teams. They're on their 3rd kicker now. In fact, Zane Gonzalez is their latest kicker, a familiar
Former
face
Panther?
around here. So they've been having some troubles in both of those two areas, but they've got an unbelievable running attack with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algiers. They combined for over 140 yards last week. They've got 8 touchdowns together, and then Bijan is also just a phenomenal receiver. He's second on the team for them in receiving yards and catches. So they've got a ton of talent on that offense. And the thing about Penix, which is unusual too, I don't know if a lot of people realize this, he's a left-handed quarterback, and that's not something you see a lot in the NFL or in college. You just don't see a lot of them. And I know that some of the Panther defenders called him a unicorn because you sort of got to mirror image everything with what you're used to doing in coverage and stuff like that. And just so that's something that'll be interesting to look at. But the Falcons defense, they're bad against the run and really good against the pass. In fact, they're number 1 against the pass in the NFL right now. And they've got some studs back there in that secondary. Jesse Bates, who went to college here down at Wake Forest, of course. They've got him back there. They've got their rookie, Xavier Watts, is doing a tremendous job. He has 2 interceptions. So they've got a lot of guys in that secondary who are really shutting things down for opposing quarterbacks. And they've got some guys up front too, some rookie pass rushers, James Pierce Jr., Jalen Walker. I know a lot of Panther fans thought that the Panthers might end up with him. They've combined for 5.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. So they're being really disruptive up there, even though that line, they are giving up a lot of running yards per game, 146 per game, actually. So hopefully that will bode well for Rico Dowdle and company and get that run game back on track this week against a team that's a little susceptible to that. So that would be great. But like you said, they're going to be itching to get a little revenge for that 30-point smackdown here at Bank of America Stadium. And it's not the easiest place to play down there. The Falcons fans can get loud. They can get a little rowdy, and that dome certainly makes it even louder than it normally would be. So, I don't think anybody's going to be taking this team lightly or looking past this Falcon team at all, because they're going to be a tough challenge.
And it's interesting what you said about that they are, they're great at defending the pass, not so much the run. And you think that bodes well for this team, but that was the Bills. The Bills were awful against the run, and we weren't able to do anything. So I know that is not something that this Panthers team will overlook. But I also know that I think Rico Dowdle, who was not able to get anything going with, he and the offensive line were just really stifled by that Saints defense, which looked really good. They are good. They are talented, as you said last week, and they were really able to stop the rushing attack. And Rico is one of those guys that, as is Chuba, as is the offensive line, they don't want that to happen a second time, And so hopefully this is, like you said, this is an opportunity for them to tee off against a Falcons team that is, like you said, averaging 150 yards a game, giving it up.
Yes, that would be outstanding. I know Rico is ticked off about only that 58 yards last week, and you better be. That this Falcons team is looking to that Saints game, though, to see exactly what the Saints defense did to bottle up that run game. And it's, got to get Bryce Young and that passing offense moving to take advantage of it if they do try to do the exact same thing. But that certainly would be a tall task against that number one passing defense. So hopefully they can get this run game going early and really set the tone offensively that way.
Exactly. That is exactly what they are going to want to do. So, Sharon, I thought one thing that we've never, in this being our second season, we always try to let people peek behind the curtain. That is why it's called Sideline Pass, and kind of take them through our process, maybe let you know about some things that you wouldn't normally hear about on maybe a different Panthers podcast. But one thing that I don't know that we've ever done is talk through our sideline prep. And I would be so interested to know how you approach preparing for a game. You are the OG at this, and I might be able to pick up some tips, and I wonder how similar our processes are or how different.
Well, I go to open locker room whenever there's an availability with the Panthers. I'm there so I can try to talk to players because that's where I get the bulk of my information. First, though, I start out with what you just heard me say. I'm there with the scouting report. I start scouting the other team to see who their go-to guys are on both sides of the ball and what they're known for and sort of the history that the Panthers might have with them. Like this week with Michael Penix Jr., focusing on the fact that he's a lefty quarterback. I plan to talk to some of the guys today about facing him and what if that changes their approach or how that makes their life easier or more difficult or something like that. So that's one of the things that I'm looking at. So I get some of my ideas that way just from my scouting reports in terms of, doing research on the other team. But then when I go into the locker room, I might have an idea of like, oh, okay, I think I'm going to talk to Cade Mays about taking over that starting center role again and what the adjustment's been like. And so I sort of think through some things like that and try to, go with what's the hot story, of the week and that kind of thing too, like, with Rico Dowdle and how he's been running the football and also things that happen in practice, like JC Horn and Mike Jackson. They go at each other every Friday doing these. They try to defend each other on deep routes, and they have a really good time out there doing that. So I think that's something fun to talk about. I try to find a mix of things that are really specifically game oriented, but also are more just sort of like fun facts that people might not know about that you can bring in, especially, in a fun game where we're winning and doing some fun stuff like that. It's fun to have those kind of hits to give people a little better idea of what a guy might be like as a person as opposed to just a football player or some quirky habit they might have or some background like Josh Nyman talking to him before the Packers game realized that he took ballet, was a ballet dancer in high school and a singer. So there's some interesting tidbits you can find out from guys when you're talking to them, and I try to bring some of that out there. And so I spend a lot of time talking with guys and doing research on the other team. And then a lot of times I do research on our own players too, especially new guys when they're coming in to find out what makes them tick, where they're from, what kinds of things they've done over their career, where they went to college, things like that. And then I compile this ridiculous list of sideline notes. It's about 5 pages long. With all sorts of different potential sideline hits on it. So David Langton, our producer, I'm sure just laughs at me every week because of the ridiculous amount of notes that I come up with. I don't even use a fraction of them because, as you know, probably 90% of what you do on the sidelines comes from what's going on in the game.
Yeah.
What players are saying to each other, what coaches are doing, something that, celebration that happened or whatever it may be. And of course, the injuries. So you spend a lot of time doing it, getting your hits from that. But in terms of the game prep, that's the kind of stuff that I do. So I always have something in my pocket. I never want to have David yell down to me, hey, Sharon, you got anything on the defense? And me say no. So I've always got something, even if it might not be specific to that game or that moment at the time. I always got something to pull out of my back pocket to talk about.
I love it. Yes, our processes are very similar. I have the great fortune of getting to sit down with Dave Canales earlier in the week and do our interview for the Panthers Huddle. And I get so much information from that one. And I have them send me the raw file because a lot of times for time, we cut down that interview for what people see on the TV show is, we might talk to him for 10 minutes and maybe there's room for 6 minutes when it comes to what's going to make it. And so I always ask them to send me the raw file of all the things that we talk about, because if he says it, and there's a camera in his face, then it's something that I can report. And I get just a lot of great information. And sometimes even going back a week, I'll go back and reference and say, hey, he said this, like you said, the passing game wasn't really going this past week, but here is what he said about it 2 weeks ago, and something that they're trying to, or he said this about Xavier Legette and it still applies. And, about his ability he's improving on hands catching or something like that. And okay, we saw it. And so I try to have those. I also have a little bit of a watch list during the game of, okay, this may not have been a pregame hit where, like you said, JC is working on his eyes or something like that, or he said that. Might not be a pregame hit, but let's see what he does against Drake London, for instance. And if he's, let me watch that, or let me watch the interaction with the captains and see what they have going on. Or, of course, when Bryce was out, okay, what's he doing on the sideline? And so I always have like my little watch list of things that aren't quite full stories, but this is what I want to watch in the game. And like you said, maybe 90% of it doesn't, if X rookie has a huge game, I have a tidbit from them. It may never happen, or it might happen 3 weeks down the road, and you go, oh, yeah, I talked to them about this. And so, like you said, there's this it's kind of like the tip of the iceberg in terms of things that, hey, if this happens, let me talk about it. And if not, then we'll save it and potentially see if there's a use for another time, or maybe it's something that never sees the light of day. Another thing that I do, and again, it's a bummer part of our job, are the injury reports. And, you can't just follow what has happened, who's in and who's out, at 11:35 on a Sunday. You also can't just follow who's called out on Friday, because you see stuff. There's a lot of talk that we do, and Sharon, I'm sure that you do it, like you said, with our amazing producer, David Langton, which I'll say, hey, this guy popped up on the injury report earlier this week. He was full practice, but he's listed, and that's really starting to bother him, and that might be something that makes it up to the guys. Hey, watch if he doesn't go in this series. And that's something that we use our judgment on, in terms of, we don't want to put anyone's health information out there until they go into the injury tent, or we have an official designation from the team. But, if you see a guy warming up for another guy, and then you go, or you see a guy grab it, that might be something that another defense kind of uses against. They saw him limping a little bit. So we need to keep an eye out for it. And so a lot of times you'll see stuff that comes up on the injury report that isn't official or doesn't seem to bother someone at the time, that, I try to make really comprehensive notes of that. I'd say, how we talk about our pages, I'm about the same as you in terms of number of pages. I might be more of a 4. If you're going 5, I'm probably more of 4 pages. But the first half of my first page is just, hey, these are the injuries, and these are the ones to watch, even if they're not an official designation. And again, you don't want to ever report those things, but unfortunately in this physical game, it happens a lot. And so that's really where I do spend a bulk of time.
Yeah, that's I agree with you on the injury thing too, because that clearly, unfortunately, plays such a huge
Yeah.
role in the game. And, that's been an ongoing saga, unfortunately, with this offensive line this year. So that's just a constant storyline, is who's in, who's out, and, who's moving over where, and the fact that they've done such a great job of it for this entire season. So yeah, it's you hate to have to discuss injuries, but it's a key part of the game. So you got to stay up on that for sure.
And Sharon, especially with the offensive line, and this is no disrespect to any other position, because all of these guys are tough. All of these guys are taking hits. But I'll report, hey, David, this guy is just, he's wrapped up in 4 heating pads, and, they're working on this and that. And I just want to let you know in case. And then he's right back out there, right after that.
Yep.
It's that, you can literally give your producer off the air. I always just try to keep them abreast, the guys upstairs, of what's going on. And I could tell you, 3 things are wrong with X player, and it doesn't matter, they're so tough. And so it's always great to see them get back out there.
That's when you say that, the first person that comes to mind is Taylor Roden.
I was just gonna say, it does not.
Right arm, left knee, right ankle. He's always like
he's wrapped up. Yes,
and he just sheds it and pops right back out there. He is so tough.
And like you said, one of the players that in Panthers history, certainly in this latest tenure, has played the most games. So it's absolutely amazing. Well, Sharon, this was fun. I hope everyone enjoyed kind of getting a sneak peek about what goes into our process, and I always appreciate you sharing all of that wisdom with me. And yeah, we'll talk again next Wednesday after the Falcons game.
That sounds great. Thanks, Kristen.
Get almost anything you need delivered with Uber Eats. What do we mean by almost? Well, you can't get a well-groomed lawn delivered, but you can get chicken parmesan delivered. A little escape? No. A delicious bowl of grapes? Yes. Yes, that. An afternoon stroll? Sorry, no. A burrito bowl? Happily, yes. A day of sunshine? No. A box of fine wines? Yes. Uber Eats can definitely get you that. Get almost anything delivered with Uber Eats. Order now. Alcohol in select markets. Product availability may vary by region. See app for details.
Hi, this is Gronk from Dudes on Dudes. I'm here to tell you about protecting your end zone with wet, extra large flushable Dude wipes. Unlike dry wiping with toilet paper, Dude wipes clear instead of smear. Wetter cleans better. Goodbye dingleberries. Goodbye itch and irritation. Plus, if you take Gronk-sized grumpies, or as I like to call them, Gronkies, baby wipes won't do. You need extra big Dude wipes to handle the job. So don't fumble the ball with toilet paper. Stop being an a-hole to your b-hole and start using Dude wipes. Available on Amazon and major retailers nationwide. Dude wipes. Best clean, pants down.
Nationwide is so much more than a great insurance company. They're one of America's largest financial services companies. Like how I'm more than just Peyton Manning. I'm also motivating Manning. When I say insurance, you say financial services. Insurance.
Financial services.
Insurance.
Financial services.
Now when I say nationwide, you say is both. Nationwide.
Is both.
Nationwide.
Is both.
For your insurance and financial needs, Nationwide is on your side.
Nationwide Investment Services Corporation, member FINRA, Columbus, Ohio.